You're watching Channel 8 WMTW. Maine's total coverage starts right now.
It is 7 o'clock right now. We are tracking Lee as it's starting to really impact us here in Maine. Taking two views right now on the left side of your screen, we're looking at downtown Portland, and on the right side, that is Booth Bay Harbor. Both areas of the state are really expected to feel tropical storm force winds today. We're tracking it all for you. And thanks for waking up with us and trusting the Toll Weather Team to keep you up to date as this storm continues to move north. I'm Christina Frank.
And I'm Terry Stackhouse. So glad that you're here. We do have team coverage this morning as we are tracking impact weather across the state. Our Kate McCusker is live at Old Orchard Beach this morning. And our Miles Hood is also joining us live from along the mid-coast. He's in Rockland today.
And we'll get to them in just a few minutes. But first, we want to start with our team of meteorologists, Ted McInerney and Colleen Hurley. Good morning, Ted and Colleen. And we are looking at that brand new data that came down early this morning, and we're really starting to see the storm ramp up.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer. We're seeing the rain already here from it. The winds are starting to pick up, but it's nowhere near where we're going, right, Colleen?
Right, and it's not called a hurricane anymore, but the name is kind of all in the details. Even though it's not Hurricane Lee, it's now post-tropical Lee. It's still a very powerful, kind of all in the details. Even though it's not Hurricane Lee, it's now post-tropical Lee. It's still a very powerful storm, and in fact, still hurricane force winds near the center.
If it acts like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a right. And so that's what we're looking at. A hurricane force winds out offshore, but we still have a tropical storm warning in effect through the day today. Coastal flood advisory as well. So let's get the latest on Lee. As of 5 a.m. for the National Hurricane Center, it's offshore. It's going to make landfall somewhere near Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, but that's again the core of the storm. That's not the whole thing. So it's got winds of 80 miles an hour. It's gusting to 100. It's moving in a hurry, north movement at 25 miles an hour, even though in your car that seems slow for a hurricane or a tropical system, that is pretty fast. So there it is. It's moving right on into the Gulf right now, or at least close to it, and the bulk of it is going to be in the Gulf. And we're looking at the bands of rain already arriving. You can see a real strong band of rain about to go into Bar Harbor and Acadia National Park. We have some pretty good rains right now out in Penobscot Bay. I want to point out one thing while I had this map here. The winds are going to be from the north. So areas of on like the islands that normally usually get the nor'easter side, where you get the southeast winds and then it comes in from the east and eventually northeast with the nor'easter, you're going to have north winds. So areas in Penobscot Bay, Casco Bay, Frenchman Bay, they're going to have different types of flooding and wave action because of that. So just remember that. This is not your typical nor'easter type coastal storm. Light rain right now in the Portland area, some more moderate rain down toward York County. Got some moderate rain moving through Washington and Whitefield, Maine, out toward Augusta. But let's look at the warnings. Again, a tropical storm warning, inland areas from Bangor to Waterville to Augusta to Lewiston to Windham. Sanford, the mountains, western Maine, you're looking at a wind advisory, still could have power outages. It's all because of this massive wind field. Again, there's the landfall of the cone. It's very narrow now, but that expansive wind field goes all the way toward York County and goes inland a bit. And then as this thing pulls dramatically to the east, things wind down this evening. Now, right now, winds are up to 35 miles an hour in Augusta, 31 mile an hour winds in Portland. I actually want to go back because look at this stat that I just saw. Sorry, I'm kind of geeking out a little bit here. 54 mile an hour winds right now in the Gulf of Maine. And so that shows that that type of wind is getting closer and closer to Portland. All right, so let's go through some 12-hour forecasts for the wind. In Portland today, we're going to have winds gusting to 50 around 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And then it will get down to about 31 miles an hour at 7. So that's a big drop off in winds. What about Augusta? Well, winds are going to be up to about 50 miles an hour around 11 a.m. And sustained right around 30. So that's a lot of stress on trees and power lines. It doesn't look like it's going to be 60 mile an hour winds there, but still it could be an issue. Now, offshore, we have some pretty big waves starting with these winds getting in here, and Colleen's got to look at the effects to our coastline.
Yeah, we're already starting to see those waves up around 5 feet in some places. And as you're just saying, the wind gusting over 50 miles an hour. We've got a 49 mile an hour wind gust at the Casco Bay buoy and 6-foot seas right now, 4 feet along the mid coast. And we're going to continue to see these builds slowly but surely here as we go through the day. Later on this afternoon, we're looking at 5 to 15 foot waves. And during the worst of it, we could be seeing 10 to 20 footers. That will be into the afternoon hours. But then as we go through the night tonight and into tomorrow morning, things start to calm down significantly. We'll have 5 foot or less waves tomorrow, but the ocean's still very dangerous. I wouldn't head in there tomorrow because we'll still have a high risk for rip currents. Now we're going to continue to see the bands of rain here. It'll be off and on as we go through the day today. Later in the afternoon, it starts to shut down across western Maine, and we may actually see the sun breaking out later on in the afternoon and evening. Notice, though, for the mid-coast and down east, holding on to rain for the better part of the day today, but winds down overnight tonight for those eastern areas, and then we're looking at sunshine for tomorrow. So quick improvements as we get into your Sunday. We're looking at ½ inch or less for the greater Portland area. Mid-coast, about an inch of rain here going forward, 2 to 3 inches closer to the Canadian border. Terry, Christina?
All right, Colleen, thank you. Yeah, the story of the day is really the wind as opposed to the rain, but we are seeing both already. Our live coverage continues as we head down to Old Orchard Beach. That's where we find our Kate McCusker. Kate, this is really not the day to visit OOB or head into the water. What are you seeing where you are now?
It is definitely not the day to visit, Terry. Definitely. Now, we've been here since 4, and the wind has definitely started to pick up. Every now and again, a really strong gust of wind will come through here. You can see how aggressively it is pushing this sign around me. Behind me, it's warning residents about the rip tides. And now the sun is coming up. You can see how dangerous the surf is and how strong the waves are. Now, we spoke to one woman visiting Old Orchard Beach, and she said yesterday she saw people in the water and in the surf, and she warned residents to be careful.
There's people that think it's okay to go, surfing in the tide and stuff, but they don't realize rip tides out there are dangerous. They really need to just be careful.
She also said she's going to wait until the storm ends before making the journey home. Now I'm going to send it up to the mid-coast. That's where we find our Miles Hood this morning. Good morning, Miles.
Good morning, Kate. Listen, we're right here in Rockland, right where they host the Lobster Festival, right here in town Rockland on the mid-coast. Listen, right now, I'm just going to step out of the way so you can get a look at the current conditions right now. The wind has let up for the time being. It is still blowing pretty hard, though, blowing some trees out of the way. It's something you really don't want to mess with. Like Kate was saying, if you're down in the coast, if you're down by the beach, you don't want to go, but you don't even want to be outside here. We've seen very few people coming out to check out the conditions. If we see them, they're staying in their cars. Again, the wind is blowing the birds around. It's blowing the boats that are left in the water. Air is puddles of water all across this parking lot right across from us, and this ground is absolutely soaked. This is a no-go day, if I say so myself. I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
Yeah, and you can see the flag on at least one of those buoys there and some of the boats bobbing. The governor is saying take your boats out of the water or really secure them, and we're beginning to see the reason why.
Yeah, we're also talking about the risk of power outages, so you want to make sure that if you do have power right now, that those mobile devices are fully charged or plug them in as soon as you can, because, of course, when the power goes out, you want to make sure you have enough power to get you through.
Never miss an opportunity to charge
Nope.
up. It's a good reminder. As we've been telling you all morning, the storm is really impacting coastal communities across Maine.
Ray Brewer from our sister station, WMUR, is in Hampton with what conditions are looking like there right now.
I'm Ray Brewer in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, along New Hampshire seacoast, where tropical storm warning is in effect. There are several concerns from officials about this storm. One of them is power outages. There are also concerns about coastal beach erosion and also some damage to the seawalls from the high winds and heavy rains. Now, concerning the power outages, utility companies have spent the last week trimming branches. Still, there are concerns that the high winds associated with Hurricane Lee will bring down some trees onto the wires because the trees still have their foliage. So with those high winds, they'll act basically like a kite. Now, it's too dark to show you the ocean, but you may be able to make out just right there that seaweed, and that's where the high tide came in last night. They're good timing right now as far as the tide goes. It's on its way out. It'll be back high again about 1 o'clock this afternoon. Regarding the coastal beach erosion, not much can be done about that, but officials are also worried about people coming down to take a look at the storm. Those high waves can throw up rocks, some as big as the size of softballs, and officials are worried about people getting hurt, so they're urging people to stay home. That's the situation here in New Hampshire. Back to you.
Okay, Ray, thank you so much. And some emergency shelters are open this morning. In Augusta, the Civic Center is now open. It will stay open until 8 o'clock tonight. The First Parish Unitarian Church in Portland is also now open. It'll be open until 7 o'clock this evening. That's located on Congress Street. In Rockland, the Flanagan Center is already open to residents. They're taking donations of water bottles, unused blankets, and anything else that you can spare. For a list of all the emergency shelters open today, you can head to our website at WMTW.com.
Those spaces usually typically a good place to charge up to if you lose power. Let's talk about outages. CMP says that 500 extra crews are on hand to deal with potential outages from the storm. They certainly are likely as the wind speeds pick up. They are prepared for heavy winds to down trees and power lines. We've had so much rain this summer, too, that the soil is already really saturated in Maine.
Those weak trees, those stressed trees, has been the #1 cause for outages this past summer, and Hurricane Lee could really compound that situation.
So if you do lose power, you can go and report it on CMP's website so that the company knows they need to get the lights back on. As always, if you do see a down power line anywhere, assume that it is live and stay away.
And checking right now on those power outages across the state. Right now, there are about 8,000 customers without power. That number has really jumped in just the last 30 minutes. As you can see on this map, most outages are in down East Maine, but they are starting to spread out across most of the state.
We're also staying up to date on flights coming into and out of Maine today. Likely going to be continuous disruptions at the jet port. 15 arriving flights are canceled, 19 departing flights canceled too. Bangor International Airport has 10 arriving and 11 departing flights canceled.
The governor declaring a state of emergency as we're seeing the effects of this post-tropical storm.
Governor Mills visiting the Maine Emergency Management Operations Center yesterday. Mills is getting a briefing from MEMA's director on the latest storm developments and the preparations underway. She's also there, as you can see, thanking staff members for their dedication to keep Mainers safe. The governor declared a state of emergency ahead of this storm. In doing so, authorizes MEMA to activate and deploy all resources necessary to help.
If you have a boat, crying out loud, get your boat out of the water or tie it down really, really well and anchor it, moor it.
The Emergency Operations Center is now fully open this morning. Meanwhile, President Biden already approved a federal declaration of emergency for Maine. That means the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA will coordinate all disaster relief efforts. FEMA will also mobilize and provide equipment and resources to any potentially impacted parts of our state.
Our total coverage of the post-tropical storm continues on WMTW.com and on Maine's Total Coverage app. Make sure you download the app because if you lose power, you can still get updates on the storm from the app. We even stream our newscasts there. That app is free. Just search for WMTW in your app store.
And you have another option to stay up to date with our coverage of this storm. That's by simply downloading our free streaming app, very local. You can get it on your Roku, your Amazon Fire TV, any of your mobile devices, or your iPad as well. Still to come this Saturday morning, advice from financial experts who are asking Americans if their budgets are prepared to weather a natural disaster. Before we break all that down for you, though, we're checking in with our Total Weather team. Meteorologist Colleen Hurley is joining us now with a look outside. What's going on, Colleen?
Well, the worst is yet to come for us today. We're dealing with the rain, the wind starting to ramp up now, and the seas will be building here as we go through the morning as well. We've got the risk for some minor coastal flooding, wind damage. The rain is a lesser of our threats here today, but we've got to also talk about what happens when Lee finally moves away. We'll take a look at
Find wellness at Weston. At Strayer University, we have the tools to help you get ahead and stay ahead. It's why we give you a brand new laptop when you enroll in a bachelor's program, so you can always keep striving.
I watched my first race yesterday.
You're on the team, kid. It's orientation day.
Hey, new guy. Let's get you up to speed.
Lunchtime!
Your workspace is ready.
Looks like you got a corner office.
Be part of something greater. Toyota. Let's go places.
With Sales Loft Rhythm, you'll never sell the same way again. Behavioral Health Centers, we're dedicated to effectively treating adult patients who suffer from addiction, as well as primary mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Our dedicated treatment team works around the clock to assess, triage, formulate, and implement a personalized treatment plan utilizing evidence-based clinical modalities, cutting-edge medical treatments, and holistic therapies. Behavioral Health Centers is here to help. Call or visit our website.
All right, good morning, everyone. Total weather alert today. Yeah, we got a tropical storm warning underway, and we're looking at the beach mirror in camera. This is Ogunquit, Maine. If you're walking the marginal way, you got to be real careful today. If you're walking the beaches, just stay away from the water. I know you want to check out the waves and everything. Follow the local ordinances and make sure you're safe today. I know this is an unprecedented event for Maine to see a tropical system this close and tropical storm warnings, but we definitely have some dangerous conditions out there. And we're looking at the waves starting to come in. Now, it was just low tide. The tide's just starting to come back in. High tide should be at 12:47. So anytime after 11, we're looking at potentially some coastal flooding and real bad beach erosion happening at that point in time till about 1:30. All right, let's talk about what's going on now. We're looking at One City Center from our Portland Skycam. 61 degrees in Portland. Sustained winds from the north-northwest at 22. And we're looking at 31-mile-an-hour wind gusts. One thing that's kind of fascinating, this is a tropical system, but our dew point's only down to 50. So that's kind of the idea why the storm turns into a tropical system to a post-tropical system, because it's running into our cool Maine air, and it's not a very tropical system anymore. It's got the characteristics where it was born in the tropics coming up here and got a lot of tropical energy with it, but it's changing more into a Maine and North Atlantic storm. We're taking a look right now in Freeport, and it looks pretty quiet there as we're at coming out of low tide. But offshore, 56-mile-an-hour winds right now in the Gulf of Maine. And that's far out, but that's what's coming our way as the winds are at 43 sustained. That's tropical storm force winds. And that's why they have tropical storm warnings out there. So post-tropical Lee is still a very dangerous, strong, massive storm entering into the Gulf of Maine, moving north in a hurry at 25 miles an hour. Look at that wind field. It goes all the way to New Hampshire, and then by this afternoon, late afternoon, it's more just down east and mid-coast, and of course, Nova Scotia. Our friends in Canada, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Bay of Fundy will be getting the brunt of the storm. Now, I'll tell you this, though. Bay of Fundy has those wild tides. And the good news is, as it gets to them, it'll be later on in the afternoon, and it'll be closer to their low tide. So we're happy for them in Canada with that. Let's take a look what's going on with our warnings. Wind advisory for the mountains and inland areas and interior York County, including Sanford. You're still going to have pretty windy conditions, just not at the criteria of a tropical storm force wind that interior and coastal Cumberland County will have. Androscoggin, Kennebec, all of our mid-coast and coastal York County has, and offshore. Offshore reports, we just kind of went over that, so let's skip past that. That 56-mile-an-hour wind gust off the Gulf of Maine. 31-mile-an-hour winds right now in Portland at the Jetport, 35 at the State Airport in Augusta. Winds today in Lewiston getting up to about 46-mile-an-hour winds. I still see maybe getting to 50 even there, and even winds sustained like that for several hours is going to put stress on trees and power lines. Rockland, different story, 60-mile-an-hour winds, not out of the question, especially around lunchtime, and you can see even by 7, 41-mile-an-hour winds. It's a windy day. Power outage index, and we're looking at mainly down east, mid-coast areas, and yes, coastal areas with the highest risk of losing power today. If you're waking up this morning, you forgot to charge it last night, you're looking at it like a 30% pump, plug it in. We're looking at moderate chance for power outages as you go inland and lesser amounts as you get toward the mountains and Canadian border. All right, so what we're looking at post-tropical Lee, the rain bands now starting to come in. You can see the heavy rain band moving right toward MDI and Bar Harbor, Frenchman Bay. We got some just pretty steady rains across the area. Portland, light rain at this hour, and some light rain, more moderate rain as you head toward the New Hampshire border here. And mid-coast area is getting some decent rain too. Let's get to the 8-day forecast now. Today, a total weather alert because we're talking about Lee and the impacts, but I'll tell you, some spots of western and southern Maine by 6, 7 o'clock tonight, you might have a beautiful sunset. Yeah, you heard that right. It's still windy. Now, as we talk about tomorrow, a sunny day. We're looking at temperatures pretty nice. Stay out of the water, still dangerous rip currents. We got some rain to go back to work and school on Monday and Tuesday morning, and then a real nice week. I love ending with optimism. Look at next week. Fall starts in a week. and we can go apple picking in peace.
Yeah, if you had a 7-day that didn't include today, that would look great right there. But okay, still have to get through today and the extent of the storm that we're still getting into. Okay, Ted, thank you so much. Well, communities from all over the U.S. are in New Hampshire to help with the state's response to Lee.
Tennessee and New York, they sent task force members who are going to focus on search and rescue missions if necessary over in New Hampshire. American Red Cross members and their partnerships in places like Ohio, Washington, D.C., and New York State are also making the trek to New Hampshire.
And the Salvation Army of Northern New England has stocked their vans with food and water to help with potential flooding and power outages. And as the Total Weather Team continues tracking Lee, experts say being prepared for a natural disaster goes beyond the basic needs like food, water, and shelter. A financial checklist is also really important. FEMA says to gather important documents and contacts and take photos of papers as well. Keep some cash in a safe place in case ATMs or banks are down. Also, review your insurance policies and make sure that they are up to date.
Storms like this, always a good reminder to stay organized with important documents. Time right now is 7:21 here on this Saturday morning. We are continuing to track this storm.
And we have team coverage with our crews out all along the coast. No, sorry, our team meteorologist here in the studio. We'll have latest for you right after this break. Stay with us.
This photo we've got in, this is from Ogunquit, from our weather spotter, Rick Barber. Thank you so much to Rick for sending this our way. As you can see, we've got some big waves out there already. The worst is yet to come. We're already seeing gusts over 50 miles an hour in the Gulf of Maine. We've got more of your forecast right after the break. You ready for...
Looks like you got a corner office. Lucky.
Be part of something greater.
At Strayer University, we have the tools to help you get ahead and stay ahead. It's why we give you a brand new laptop when you enroll in a bachelor's program, so you can always keep striving.
At behavioral health centers, we're dedicated to effectively treating adult patients who suffer from addiction, as well as primary mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Our dedicated treatment team works around the clock to assess, triage, formulate, and implement a personalized treatment plan utilizing evidence-based clinical modalities, cutting-edge medical treatments, and holistic therapies. Behavioral Health Centers is here to help. Call or visit our website.
Low tide was about an hour ago, and now it's on its way back in. It'll be high at about 1:45 this afternoon. You can see the waves breaking there in Rockland Harbor. It is 58 degrees, and we've got the Whitecaps jetty doing its job. We're going to have the threat of coastal flooding here this afternoon because of a little bit of storm surge. We're getting lucky this time. We're talking most places will deal with less than a foot of storm surge, 2 foot at the most, but we'll be under the coastal flood advisory here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. afternoon. That's that high tide just before 1 p.m. this afternoon. And we've got waves breaking on shore. We're talking 12 to 18 footers out there. Some coastal erosion through this afternoon as well. Now, in terms of rainfall, we've got showers kind of off and on here that we're dealing with this morning. The heaviest rain will be down east, but we'll actually be drying out in western Maine later on in the afternoon and into the evening. We may even see some sunshine later in the later part of the day, but notice down east, even in Camden, still dealing with that rain into the evening, but then we dry out as that pulls away quickly overnight tonight, and we're getting into some sunshine as we get to tomorrow. So we're not looking at a whole lot of additional rainfall in western Maine. We're talking less than a half an inch for the greater Portland area. As we get to the mid-coast, closer to an inch here going forward, about 3/4 of an inch, and then down east 2 to 3 inches of rainfall by the time it's all said and done. The wind, definitely the bigger threat with Lee as of right now. Christina and Terry.
Colleen, thank you. There has been so much lead time for this particular storm that first responding agencies, they've had multiple days to prepare for the potential impacts of now post-tropical storm Lee. At Wells, local officials were taking steps to get ready when we spoke to them on Tuesday.
And we're talking about all the risks that we were looking with this storm, and the Wells Fire Chief says they really want people to stay away from the area. We're talking about, of course, not watching, near the water with the riptides and the high surf. They're really all on standby this weekend, especially crews in Wells. They might be calling in off-duty staff. Everything that's on the beach is already off. They moved the lifeguard stands, the tables, bathrooms. They fueled up their vehicles and tools, make sure that everything is really ready to go.
We want to be ready and prepared for if and when we get a lot of downed trees, a lot of power outages, inundation on the ocean, things like that.
Consideration in terms of storm prep right now is that the existing ground saturation due to all the rain that we've seen this summer. So definitely something to watch out for, especially when we're talking about power outages. Right now, your time is 7:27 on your Saturday morning. Thanks for waking up with us. We're checking in with Colleen. Yeah, we're especially talking about power outages. It's the winds.
Yeah, and the wind is going to be ramping up here. So we're kind of just getting started with it. The worst is yet to come. We're seeing the wind howling at a good 22 miles an hour in Portland right now, but offshore it's gusting over 50 miles an hour. That wind field from Lee is actually expanding here as we go through the morning. So we'll take a look at some of the threats here in more detail coming up next.
¿Esperas una señal para obtener una oferta en un vehículo usado certificado por Toyota? Listo, acá hay una.
Introducing Platinum Status, where you save 10 cents per gallon on every fill and get the chance to win VIP experiences and rewards. Just fill up at Shell 12 times in 3 months with any fuel grade or 6 times with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline.
With Sales Loft Rhythm, you'll never sell the same way again.
At behavioral health centers, we're dedicated to effectively treating adult patients who suffer from addiction, as well as primary mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Our dedicated treatment team works around the clock to assess, triage, formulate, and implement a personalized treatment plan utilizing evidence-based clinical modalities, cutting-edge medical treatments, and holistic therapies. Behavioral Health Centers is here to help. Call or visit our website.
Let's look at the solar garden lights. The auto sensor turns in at nightfall and fully charged they shine for 5 hours. The magnet and the corrugated shape on the back ensures a flush and secure fit. To use, simply press the button in the back, magnet to your garden bed, and enjoy. No need for cords or batteries. The dappled pattern casts an elegant light to illuminate the garden. Happy gardening!
There are stories of joy, adventure, and triumph. Discover these stories and the moments that bring us all together on Stitch, now streaming on Very Local.
You're watching Channel 8 WMTW, Maine's total coverage starts right now.
7:30 on this Saturday morning. We appreciate you being here. We're taking another live look outside. Left side of your screen is downtown Portland, high above. Looks relatively calm at this moment, at least. The right, that's Bar Harbor. More moisture in the air there. Wind speeds beginning to pick up. Thank you so much for trusting the Total Weather team to keep you updated on the impact of the storm this morning. I'm Terry Stackhouse.
And I'm Christina Frank. We have team coverage this morning all along the coast. Our Kate McCusker is live for us in Old Orchard Beach. Our Miles Hood is along the mid-coast in Rockland. We'll get updates from them in just a few minutes. But first, we're going to check in with our meteorologists here in the studio, Colleen Hurley and Ted McInerney. Good morning, guys. What are we seeing right now?
Good morning. Well, we're still seeing Lee as a strong storm right now. It's no longer called a hurricane. It's called post-tropical because it doesn't have the typical formation of a hurricane, but it's still producing hurricane force winds. So important to note, it hasn't downgraded. It is still strong out there.
Yeah, it's hard to, if you remember back to Superstorm Sandy, that was a hurricane, and you know how much damage Sandy did to New Jersey and areas inland there in Pennsylvania. That was not technically a hurricane, and it was still an extremely dangerous storm. Right. So same idea we're talking about here. All right, let's get into the details here. Here's where we're looking at that eye. It's very broad. That's another idea why we talk about post-tropical. Winds are at 80, gusting to 100. It's also moving north at a rapid speed now at 25 miles an hour. So here come the bands from Lee moving in, and the tropical rains, not as crazy as some tropical systems for us, but down east, mid-coast areas getting some pretty good rain. You can see that moving right on into MDI right now in Bar Harbor. Light rain in Portland, but it's blowing around pretty good. Same with York County. Don't be too excited about the rain today. We're not worried about flash flooding, and that's one good thing today. We're looking at some moderate rains out toward Washington, Maine, too. All right, so we're under a tropical storm warning, the coast of Maine, including interior areas like of Cumberland, like areas like Standish, Gorham, and Windham. Androscoggin County, Auburn, Lewiston, and Turner under a tropical storm warning. Same with Waterville and Augusta, and even up toward Presque Isle. That's because tropical storm force winds are possible. Now, inland areas, there's a wind advisory because you're still getting that expanded wind field. So as it makes landfall in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia later this afternoon, the wind field has expanded. So we're still getting this massive size storm, and we're still getting the pretty good wind gusts. Speeds right now, not bad. We're at about 15 to 25 mile an hour sustained winds. Gusting to 35 right now in Portland, 31 right now in, I should say 35 in Augusta, 31 in Portland, and 54 mile an hour winds in the Gulf of Maine. That type of Gulf of Maine wind is going to be moving closer and closer to us. So wind forecast today, 42 mile an hour winds at 9, 50 mile an hour winds around lunchtime today, and then tapering off late in the afternoon into the evening hours. And there won't be much rain this afternoon, too. Let's go talk about the waves and rain with Colleen Hurley. Colleen, how are the waves looking now?
Well, we're starting to see some really pick up here. It's a slow build, those waves out there this morning, but we're starting to see along the mid-coast now the 5-foot seas. We've got 6-foot seas there at the Casco Bay buoy and in southern Maine as well as those gusty winds. Look at over 50 mile an hour gusts just now at the Casco Bay buoy. So we're going to continue to see the waves slowly building here as we go into the afternoon. 5 to 10 foot waves will become 10 to 20 foot waves later on in the afternoon. But then as we go through the evening and eventually overnight tonight, slowly but surely the ocean will start to calm down. Tomorrow waves are 5 foot or less, but still dangerous out there. High rip current risk tomorrow, even though we'll have some nice sunshine and warm weather for your Sunday. I would avoid the ocean for another day as it's going to be very, very choppy out there still as Lee pulls away tomorrow. Now we're worried about our high tide this afternoon. That's at about 1:45, 12:47 p.m. We may have some splash over at the coast, especially as those big waves continue to build. And we may have a little bit of storm surge as well. We're lucky now with most places looking at a foot or less of storm surge here this afternoon. We've got the rain coming in, but it's going to be winding down this afternoon and then eventually coming to an end later on this evening and pulling away. Here comes the sunshine for tomorrow. So rapid improvements expected overnight tonight, but we're just getting started now as it goes forward here today. Christina and Terry.
Colleen, thank you so much. We'll see you again in just a bit. Our team coverage continues this morning. Going to take you live to Old Orchard Beach. That's where we find our Kate McCusker. Some people have been out walking the beach this morning, but now the wind speeds are picking up. Splashover is a risk. Kate, good morning. What are you seeing there?
Good morning, Terry. We've been here since 4 this morning, and the wind has just gotten stronger and more aggressive, and it's going to get even worse. Now that the sun is up, you can see just how aggressive the waves are, and we just saw some officials come through to check the surf, and there are signs up at the front of the beach warning residents about the riptide. Now, we spoke to one woman who is visiting Old Orchard Beach, and she said she saw many people in the water yesterday, and she warned them to be careful.
I know there's people that think it's okay to go, surfing in the tide and stuff, but they don't realize riptides out there are dangerous. They really need to just be careful.
She's also waiting until the storm ends before making the journey home. Now I'm going to send it up to the mid-coast. That's where we find our Miles Hood this morning. Good morning, Miles.
Hey guys, we're getting a gust right now, man. This is not good. This is no bueno weather. This is not good out here in Rockland. We're out where they host the Lobster Festival. This wind is booming. It is blowing the rain every which way. My hair is soaked. My jacket is soaked. This is a new jacket. I just switched this one. Oh my God. There's the food trucks. The trees are blowing. Now we're gonna take you out towards the coast right now. The wind is absolutely moving it right now. You see those boats? They are rocking like they're at a party, but it is not a fun party to be at right now. This is that tropical storm environment we've been talking about all morning. We're experiencing it right now here in the mid-coast. And Colleen's been saying this might not even be the worst of it. Well, we're in for a ride, because this might be the worst I've ever been in. And if it's only going to get worse, I'll keep you updated on it. Send it back to y'all in the studio.
You see the wind speeds picking up in some areas. Old Orchard Beach, it's intensifying, but certainly more intense out in Rockland. See that flag moving and some of the boats bobbing. So mid-coast is taking the brunt of it, at least at this moment.
It's really starting right now. We're saying with those winds, you really want to watch out for the power outages that are expected. So make sure to charge any of your mobile devices. That way they're at 100%, so when you lose power, you can get the most out of them, so you want to make those steps ahead of when you lose power.
Yeah, still a little bit, a narrow window to prepare if you haven't taken steps already. For those who live and work on the water, preparing for Lee, spending the last few days trying to bring their boats ashore, secure them. Many of these fishermen, lobstermen who we spoke to, they say that this is really more than a job. This is a lifestyle. It spans generations. Many of these fishermen have been working together, doing so around the clock to ensure that once the storm is over, they can get back to work.
When things start getting like this, everybody pulls together because, you've had lifetimes of this kind of living. It's part of the lifestyle. And everybody cares for each other for the most part, and, everybody's there to help other people.
Yeah, they told us, we spoke to them earlier this week, that all that work to get those boats out of the water and secure, that would continue until all the boats were on shore or tied up and fastened. Bar Harbor is also expected to see some of the most serious impacts in this state as the post-tropical storm now approaches.
The National Park Service has already closed all the campsites in Acadia until the storm's passed, and officials then decide if it's safe for visitors to return. During previous storms, people have actually been swept off the cliffs at Thunder Hole. Officials are really urging everyone to stay away from the ocean's edge. We could see those wind gusts of up to 55 miles an hour today.
I think we're ready, and we're not going to do anything stupid. We're not going to go out if it's looking like things are blowing all over the place. We're going to just hunker down.
Yeah, use common sense, play it safe. We'll continue to track the impacts in the area as the morning continues.
When in doubt, hunker down. Donna has the right line of thinking there. Pending storm is already causing some disruption. Still this morning, 4 cruise ships seeking refuge in Portland Harbor. They're still there. These are smaller cruise ships by comparison, at least, about 1,000 people on board each of them. They're being told that the ships are going to stay there at least until tomorrow, staying in port. For their inland, the Oxford County Fair, that's still a go. Organizers say that today, the Saturday, when they host this, is typically their busiest day, with 7,000 people expected to make their way to the fairgrounds. Made that announcement yesterday that the show will go on, and they're going to take their chances.
But is there any concern about some of these tents and things?
Yeah, the people that have the tents, they're concerned about the wind factor, and I just told them that secure them as best you can, and if you don't feel comfortable, you can take them down.
Yeah, put some stakes in the ground, maybe use some sandbags. Midway operators say that they also felt the amusement rides would be safe to run. They're encouraging anybody headed to the fairgrounds today at Oxford County to bring a raincoat.
Not the umbrella today. You're not going to want that. And some emergency shelters are opening this morning in Augusta. The Civic Center is now open until 8 o'clock tonight. The First Parish Unitarian Church in Portland is also open until 7 p.m. That's located on Congress Street. In Rockland, the Flanagan Center is already open to residents. They're taking donations of water bottles, unused blankets, and anything else you can spare. For a list of all the emergency shelters open today, you can head to our website at WMTW.com, also on our mobile app. And right now we're keeping an eye on power outages across the state. There are now more than 13,000 customers without power. That number has really been jumping in the last few minutes and ever since we went on the air around 5 this morning. You can see on the map right here where the biggest outages are, largely down east and coastal areas. And our total coverage of post-tropical storm Lee continues on our website, WMTW.com, and on Maine's Total Coverage app. In the weather section, you can get the latest forecast from Ted and Colleen and our total weather team. Plus, if you do lose power, the risk of that is high. You can stream our newscasts right inside that app as well. It's 7:40 right now on your Saturday morning. We're checking back in with Colleen for another look at the storm.
Well, we're in a bit of a lull right now in the greater Portland area, but you can see that we have more bands of rain coming ashore. The wind ramping up, and those waves are starting to kick up right now as well. We'll time out what the rest of the day looks like for you here coming up after the break.
Look, Steph, I got an instant online offer on my car from CarMax in under 2 minutes.
Well, I got an instanter offer on my car, even faster.
Instanter? That's not a thing.
It is.
Not even a word.
Get a real offer real fast and good for 7 days at CarMax.com.
At Strayer University, we have the tools to help you get ahead and stay ahead. It's why we give you a brand new laptop when you enroll in a bachelor's program, so you can always keep striving.
Oh, I can't believe it's true. I get to love you. It's a promise I'm making to you. Whatever may come, your heart I will choose. Remember this moment with me. Every kiss begins with K.
At behavioral health centers, we're dedicated to effectively treating adult patients who suffer from addiction, as well as primary mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Our dedicated treatment team works around the clock to assess, triage, formulate, and implement a personalized treatment plan utilizing evidence-based clinical modalities, cutting-edge medical treatments, and holistic therapies. Behavioral Health Centers is here to help. Call or visit our website.
Let's look at the solar garden lights. The auto sensor turns in at nightfall and fully charged they shine for 5 hours. The magnet and the corrugated shape on the back ensures a flush and secure fit. To use, simply press the button in the back, magnet to your garden bed, and enjoy. No need for cords or a bag.
All right, good morning, everyone. On this Saturday, we're looking way out at the edge of Casco Bay with a halfway rock lighthouse camera, and we're looking out toward the open Atlantic as the tide is just hit low last hour. So now the tide's starting to come back in, and we're going to start to see the surf build as Lee pushes into the Gulf of Maine. And you're looking right out into the Gulf of Maine right now, well offshore, and that's kind of a cool shot. We'll have to keep an eye on it through the morning. All right, let's go from there toward the coast of Casco Bay, and this is Freeport at Wolf's Neck, and you can see things look a lot more calm there at this point in time with cloudy skies. Not calm as Rockland. We just heard from Miles Hood. He said things were bumping there, and you can see for sure the winds are whipping around. The trees are blowing, the camera's blowing. This is the little top of the 250 Maine Hotel where people are usually out there taking a sip of coffee, looking at the sunrise. You don't want to be doing that today. Everybody needs to hunker down with a tropical storm warning. Right now in Portland, currently 61 degrees. Winds are gusting at the jetport to 31 miles an hour, which is noteworthy enough that patio furniture could be blowing around, and that's why we asked you to secure all that down. But not quite at the threshold to start knocking down power and trees. But offshore, let's look at some of the reports. 54-mile-an-hour winds in the Gulf of Maine right now. Out toward areas offshore from the mid-coast, 47-mile-an-hour winds. Hey, this is new. We're at 51-mile-an-hour winds offshore from Portland. That's 12 miles away from Portland offshore. That's right where we were looking, pretty much halfway rock. So that's pretty intense. All right, let's take a look right now at what's going on with Lee. As of the 5 a.m. for the National Hurricane Center, and it is 7:45 here, so we should be getting the 8 a.m. update for the National Hurricane Center. But as of 5 a.m., 80-mile-an-hour winds moving north at 25 miles per hour. Look at the wind field. I want to just pause this right here. There's where the hurricane force winds are in the red, and then strong tropical storm force winds in the orange, and then the tropical storm force winds spread all the way past Bangor to Presque Isle, to Boston, to Cape Cod. And so that's why you're seeing the wind advisory inland and that tropical storm warning in effect. Now watch as it pulls away. That's when our winds go down. Landfall will be in Nova Scotia, near Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and it will luckily hit the Bay of Fundy, which is those massive tides, getting closer to low tide, which is good news for Atlantic Canada. All right, what we're looking at, those tropical storm force winds, possible in all areas in blue, a wind advisory for mountains and foothills. We just saw the offshore reports, but wow, yeah, we're getting up to almost 60-mile-an-hour winds in the Gulf of Maine right now, 31-mile-an-hour winds at the Jetport State Airport in Augusta at 35 miles an hour, so we're starting to ramp up here. Hour by hour, let's take you through the next 12 hours of wind in Portland. 42-mile-an-hour winds at 9 a.m. I think that might be a little bit low. We'll have to ramp that up a little bit. 50-mile-an-hour winds at 11, as well as 1 o'clock. 46-mile-an-hour winds at 3. And then once we get 40 or below, it's still quite windy and breezy, but things are looking a little bit better for the evening hours. In fact, this may shock you. You might actually see some sun and a beautiful sunset tonight in western and southern Maine. All right, Rockland, different story. You guys are really in on it. I don't know what that 33 is doing. We're going to be looking at winds gusting to about 60 around lunchtime today, 54-mile-an-hour winds by 1 o'clock. So the areas that we were expecting the power outages are along the coastline, and you can see Lee's bands of rain are already getting in here. So much to talk about. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast for you here. We're looking at those bands of rain coming in. Not really a rainstorm for us. We're getting rain, tropical downpour, especially mid-coast down east areas, but it's light rain, nothing crazy on the rain front of things, but it's more of the winds that we're concerned about for today. All right, so you see the light rain out in the mid-coast as of this hour, and as we put everything into motion here, you can see the rain actually kind of stops by the afternoon, and that's why I was talking about how we're going to see sunshine, and maybe not sunshine, but at least a nice sunset come our way by the end of the day, and things will be much better for tomorrow. How about that? 78 degrees of sunshine, a little breezy. Don't get in the water, still rip current issues. And then as we head toward Monday, some showers to get back to work and school. That sounds awful. And then as we head toward Tuesday, although I'm working on a Saturday. We're looking at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, looking like great September weather. And the first day of fall is in a week. But, you know, this is the exact, when we talk about the peak of hurricane season, when we break down June 1st to November 30th, we're right in it. September 15th, 16th now, is the peak of hurricane season. And there's Margot out in the middle of the Atlantic, not a threat for land. We have an invest right now. That's going to be potentially Nigel. So the tropics aren't over yet. As we get into the heat of it here in the next couple of weeks, as we know, Sandy hit right before Halloween. So we have a lot of time to deal with the tropics. It's already been quite active. We had Dahlia in Florida. So, you know, we got to buckle up for the fall, and we have our windstorms potentially. And then what's after that? No, we won't talk about snow.
No, one storm at a time. That's all we can handle. But seeing as we were just getting to it with this storm, we're just starting to get into it as well, right?
Yeah, I think we're now really starting to see. You saw Miles' live shot there in Rockland. It's really starting to rock and roll out there. And we just had a buoy report 12 miles offshore from Portland. That's noteworthy. Was there a bug here?
Yeah, there's a little bug that's flying around. I'm trying to get it as I'm listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a lot to keep our eyes on, especially. So Colleen even said earlier, we're just, the worst is yet to come.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are.
It's a long duration, and there'll be a lot of opportunities for outages. So we'll be watching that. Ted, thank you.
An area of concern that we keep on telling you about is the mid-coast area.
The director of the Knox County Emergency Management Agency, Candace Richards, is joining us live now by phone. Candace, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us. What will the role of the Knox County Emergency Management Agency be today, and what are you monitoring at this moment?
Well, we are all at our Emergency Operations Center, which is in the Knox County Public Safety Building right here in Rockland. So we can definitely see what the weather is up to out there because we're right near the water. Thankfully, there's not as much rain so far as was originally predicted, but I wouldn't advise going out with an umbrella because you're just going to get blown out to sea. The wind is blowing pretty hard, sideways. So we're going to be here all day, and what we do is we work as sort of a mediator between the public safety agencies and CMP, so that when we have a lot of power outages, we work with CMP to set the priorities so that life safety issues are taken care of first. We have about 873 outages right now in Knox County, and I'm sure that's going to go up. The ground is saturated and the trees still have leaves on them, so that's not going to help that situation any. But CMP is already staged in several areas around Knox County, and they are already tackling things. So as long as the wind doesn't make it too hard for them to get up in the buckets to make those repairs, it hopefully should not be too long before people do get their power back if it goes out.
And Candace, as we heard from meteorologists, they're really saying the worst of this storm is still yet to come. What would you say to people in that area as they're saying, look outside, it doesn't look that bad? What is your advice for them throughout the day?
I think people should probably assume that there's a very good chance their power is going to go out today. So hopefully people have prepared ahead of time in case they don't end up having power, be able to cook food and do the things that they want to do today. I just ask that people be patient. All these calls go into our dispatch center here for Knox County, and it takes time to get some of this stuff dealt with. We're going to be focusing on life safety issues first. So if there's a tree in the roadway but it's not impacting wires, that may take a while before that gets moved, when we have to make sure that no one-way in and out roads are going to be blocked, that sort of thing. So hopefully people are already prepared, and if they're not, I just suggest they ride it out. This isn't going to be the kind of storm that lasts several days, so we should be okay.
Yeah, it certainly is a situation where you can just wait it out for several hours. Might not necessarily be the most comfortable if you haven't prepared the way that you should, but perhaps a learning opportunity. All right, that's Candace Richards joining us live by phone from the Knox County Emergency Management Agency. Candace, thank you so much for being with us. Good to talk to you.
You're welcome.
Monitoring damage reports from the National Weather Service, too.
Thank
we
you.
are seeing at least 2 damage reports, those just coming into our newsroom. Looks like at this point just some slight wind damage, but we'll continue to monitor that as we get another check of the forecast with Ted and Colleen.
Yeah, the winds, guys, are just starting to really kind of pick up. I know that they're hopeful for people don't lose power. We don't want you to lose power either. I don't want to go home to no power either. No. But we are looking at those winds starting to ramp up. That's the deal right now. So if you're waking up this morning, I'm looking at Higgins Beach over here on our webcam, and people are all walking the low tide beach. That's because it's low tide right now. High tide's coming in later this morning, and things are look totally different then, right?
Yeah, it's going to be high about 1:45 this afternoon. We've got a coastal flood advisory that goes until 2. May have a little bit of storm surge, but we're lucking out. The full moon not until later this month, so we're not dealing with those astronomical high tides, but we may have some issues at the coast. We're going to take a look at your forecast here coming up next.
At Strayer University, we have the tools to help you get ahead and stay ahead. It's why we give you a brand new laptop when you enroll in a bachelor's program, so you can always keep striving.
This year, Bunny Slope will undergo a complete rebranding so that we can become...
Done. I just hired a freelance brand designer in Fiverr. She's got lots of experience with this kind of thing.
Great. We're also going to launch an e-commerce website.
Done. I found a web developer.
And we're going to
and a social media manager and an SEO expert.
Well, I guess that's lunch.
This year, your best business plan is Fiverr. Expand your team with a talented freelancer and...
Done.
At behavioral health centers, we're dedicated to effectively treating adult patients who suffer from addiction, as well as primary mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Our dedicated treatment team works around the clock to assess, triage, formulate, and implement a personalized treatment plan, utilizing evidence-based clinical modalities, cutting-edge medical treatments, and holistic therapies. Behavioral Health Centers is here to help. Call or visit our website.
Let's look at the solar garden lights. The auto sensor turns in at nightfall and fully charged they shine for 5 hours. The magnet and the corrugated shape on the back ensures a flush and secure fit. To use, simply press the button in the back, magnet to your garden bed, and enjoy. No need for cords or batteries. The dappled pattern casts an elegant light to illuminate the garden. Happy gardening!
All right, we've got the 8 a.m. update that just came in on Hurricane Lee. This comes from the National Hurricane Center, who's monitoring the storm. In addition to Maine's total weather team, it's still got 80-mile-an-hour winds near the center of the storm. Now, Lee is no longer called a hurricane. It's now called a post-tropical storm. That's because now that it has moved into a much cooler environment, it's taken on some different characteristics. But don't worry. All right, we've got the 8 a.m. update that just came in on Hurricane Lee. This comes from the National Hurricane Center, who's monitoring the storm. In addition to Maine's total weather team, it's still got 80-mile-an-hour winds near the center of the storm. Now, Lee is no longer called a hurricane. It's now called a post-tropical storm. That's because now that it has moved into a much cooler environment, it's taken on some different characteristics. But don't worry, that doesn't mean the storm's been downgraded. It is still quite a strong storm. We're seeing those gusts up near 100 miles an hour near the center of the storm. And already in the Gulf of Maine, we're starting to see some big wind gusts close to 60 miles an hour. It's howling at 20 miles an hour in Portland right now, 25 miles an hour in Augusta. We've got the gusts up over 30, 40 miles an hour already, and you'll see over the Gulf of Maine here, gusting up over 50 miles an hour. The worst of the wind is yet to come, and that's really going to be the biggest threat here today. Terry?
Right, Colleen, thank you. The Maine Emergency Management Agency, we just learned this. They're going to host 2 press briefings later on today with updates on their emergency response as the worst of Lee is still yet to impact us here in the state. That first one scheduled for 10 o'clock this morning. The second is at 3 this afternoon. You can, of course, watch both of those briefings live right here on Maine's Total Coverage for the very latest information and guidance from MEMA. And we want to pass along a programming note as well this morning. We are going to be staying on the air with continuous coverage.
And we'll be staying right here on Channel 8, and we're not going to be airing Good Morning America this morning as we continue the coverage of this storm as it's hitting us here in Maine. Right now, your time is 7:57, and we're checking back in with our total weather team because we are, our coverage is continuing, but the reason why we're in continuous coverage, look at red on Saturday. We have a lot going on right now.
All right, we're looking at, 70 degrees today. That's not bad temperature-wise, but we have a lot more than temperature to talk about. We have winds, high winds, a tropical storm warning in effect right now, and we're looking at that gusting to 50 miles an hour at the Portland area. Probably a lot worse out toward Rockland, Vinyl Haven, North Haven, Islesboro, and even out toward Monhegan Island. Of course, the islands are going to be on it, but even Augusta, Lewiston could get close to 50 mile per hour winds. Now, wind advisory inland might be an issue. Now, tomorrow, you can see on the 8-day, a different story. 78 degrees sunny. You still got that high surf advisory. Some rain Monday and Tuesday, and looking better as we head toward next week and into next weekend. As far as what we're looking at elsewhere, we're looking at conditions right now looking pretty okay right now, but just starting to ramp up. As you can see out in Rockland Harbor right now, it's starting to rock and roll a little bit there.